It's the end of the season, which means it's time for the Hammers Chat Awards, but without actually giving out any awards. I sent 6 questions to the boys, they got their thinking caps on, one of them even kept their thinking caps on, and they gave us their thoughts on what they thought was the Hammer of the Year, the signing of the season, their favourite moment, plus 3 other questions. Let's go.
Straight into it, Hammer of the Year, Lucas Fabianski.
Lucas Fabianski.
Fabianski.
Lucas Fabianski. I'm sure he's everybody's Hammer of the Year.
I can't look away from him at all. He has just been absolutely outstanding ever since he came into the club. Plain
and simple, really. I think without him, we would have potentially been looking at a relegation battle.
He has been the most consistent player in the entire team.
He's been phenomenal. From day one to the end, it's very difficult to actually think of any mistakes he made.
You can't downplay the effect Lucas Fabianski has had on that position.
Conceded the most shots in the Premier League this season is not a good statistic unless you are a goalkeeper and you're making the most saves, which is exactly what he did.
He's cool, he's calm, he's composed, he's everything you want in a goalkeeper, and he gives the players in front of him the confidence that perhaps we haven't had with certain other goalkeepers we've had in the past.
The amount of times where they could be taking a shot or they could be running through one-on-one on goal, and I'm confident that the goalkeeper will make the right, calm decision, the rational decision.
Chelsea and Liverpool both paid big bucks for their goalkeepers. I'm not sure either of them have got anybody significantly better than Fabianski.
Now we've got a cemented #1 goalkeeper.
He was putting in 8, 9, 10 out of 10 performances every week, really. It's hard not to give it to Lucas Fabianski. What a season.
I was quite torn with this one. Fabianski deserves it wholeheartedly, and I've got no qualms with the fact that he actually won the award. But for me, it has to be Declan Rice. We've seen this boy grow from his debut at Burnley into, an England international now that's headed to the Nations finals. What he has done in such a short space of time is absolutely tremendous. If he made a mistake when he was hooked at the start of the season for Liverpool, things didn't look great for him. But he came back, he worked hard, and he just showed Pellegrini why he was potentially the first name on his team sheet week in, week out. I think he's got a lot of traits and similarities to Bobby Moore. I know it's a big claim, but I've said it all season. His reading of the game for someone of such a young age is rare to see these days. I think we'll be lucky to keep hold of this boy for another 1 or 2 seasons because I think he's destined for great things. But I think, as we've seen, he's probably the most talented youngster to come through our academy in the last decade. I think that he will carve a career similar to that of Lampard, Carrick, Defoe, Cole, the rest of them. Maybe even Bobby Moore. He might even emulate, who knows. Hopefully, maybe as an England fan one day when he's not playing for West Ham, we can see him as captain lifting the World Cup. He is special, and he will have a long and illustrious career, even if it might not be in a West Ham United shirt.
Signing of the summer, signing of the season, whatever you want to call it. Well, that has got to be Fabianski as well, I'm afraid.
Getting him at such a snip price was an absolute massive steal for us. Adrian was sort of a stopgap at the time, or has been for the last couple of seasons. He's been a great servant for the club. But I think when you look at Fabianski's record in the Premier League over the last few years and some of the saves he made, he nearly single-handedly kept Swansea up. What he's proved for us this season, some of the saves that he's made, winning us games sometimes single-handedly, is the best keeper outside of the top 6. And he's potentially even better than some of the keepers inside the top 6. I think he's better than Kepa, Lloris on his day. They do have a fantastic back four in front of them, and Fabianski doesn't have that. So obviously he has to make more saves. If you put Fabianski in one of those top 6 teams, I think he fits in no problem.
If I wasn't allowed to pick Fabianski because I've given him Hammer of the Year, I'd probably go for Issa Diop.
Signing of the season for me, Balbuena.
For £4 million, we've signed a centre-back who's easily worth over £20 million now.
No one would have said that Balbuena would be as good or as important as he has been since we signed him.
I had my doubts when he first came in. That was mainly because, naively, I was a little bit concerned that I'd never heard of him. But you know what? It doesn't matter, does it? These scouts know a lot more than I do, clearly.
He has been arguably our best defender this year.
We've got 3 centre-backs there. Well, 4 if you include Winston Reid, but we've got 3 there with vast experience. They're really good talent, but he's the first one on the team sheet.
Other players around him play better when he's in the side. I think the organisation, leadership skills, he's got it all in abundance, and he reads the game terrifically well. I just feel so calm when he's playing.
Everything that man has shows a person who could marshal our defence for years to come.
When he got injured, we really missed him, which shows just how important he is to the team.
And without that injury, he could have been in for a shout for Hammer of the Year. That's just how good Balbuena has been.
If we could get Balbuena every summer, we'd be laughing and probably in the top 6.
Whoever found that bloke, genius, absolute genius.
I think Pellegrini has done an absolutely brilliant job. I was concerned that he might not be able to turn around what was at that point a sinking ship. Yet not only has Pellegrini done that, when we go into games, I no longer dread watching us try and defend and just batter a 1-0 win. To turn around the absolute shambles that we were when he came in, and to come out of it with a top 10 finish and playing a style of football that we all love, I could not be happier with Pellegrini. He's got some improvements to do for the next couple of years, but I'm super happy he's here for the foreseeable future.
When he got the job, I said to finish in the top 10 with him implementing a better style of football would represent a good first season. He's done that, so I stand by my word. He's done well, and hopefully things will only get better. Hopefully he can shift out a few players that he wants to and bring a few more in, and we can see progression. And then again next season, at the end of the day, as long as we're seeing continuous progression year on year, that's all we can ask for, really. Yeah, hopefully like to see us take the cups a little bit more seriously, but yeah, overall I'm fairly pleased.
He's done all right. He's not done too bad. I mean, it's nothing brilliant, 10th place finish, but I want to see him do better in the cups. I think he's a little bit obsessed with Europe. I want to see him really take the cups seriously.
I think he's improved the football. That was the main thing for me. I want to see attacking football. It's more attacking, it's not full out attack, but I think if you do that with the players we've got at West Ham, we'll struggle even further. I think he's finally found the right balance in terms of attack and defence, etc. at West Ham. He's just not had his best 11 out. I think the very last game of the season, I think it was his strongest 11, but that was still without Yarmolenko and a fully fit Jack Wilshere, both of which would arguably get into Pellegrini's ideal starting 11. He's done really well, all things considered. A few negatives, but the positives far outweigh the negatives as well. So yeah, very good start from our new manager.
I must say, when we got Manuel Pellegrini as manager, I was elated. I think we've had a torrid 6 months with David Moyes as manager, and obviously he came in and did what he needed to do. He kept the club from relegation, but I think playing negative defensive football, although it was needed at the time, week in, week out in front of 50,000 fans, it bored the death off of some people. Bringing in an attacking manager similar to what we had with Slaven Bilic the first season is exactly what we wanted. It was going to take some time getting used to what he had. You know, he wanted to play a similar defensive style with a high line that stayed on the edge of the box, every man one another talking to each other, keeping that high line like he did when he won the title at Man City. And obviously those defenders that we have, they're not as well versed as some of the Manchester City defenders are, so it took a bit of work. And our fullbacks at times, you know, a la Fredericks and Masuaku, aren't the most defensive of players. However, I think towards the end of the season, you know, he got, especially the last 7 games, he got everybody singing off of the same hymn sheet. There was a period where I thought actually it might not be working here. You know, he wants to play this free flow attacking football, but players like Anderson have gone for the boil, and Arnautovic as well. But I think a lot of that was down to Arnautovic and the unrest that he had caused. I think the last 7 games and that run into Christmas proved exactly what Manuel Pellegrini is all about. If he has his 3-year plan and his way at the club, you know, over the coming seasons, I really hope that we can, you know, turn the corner and begin to start seeing the development of a future European club.
Disappointment of the season has to be the Cups. I think you're lying if you say anything else, really. To get drawn against the side that was bottom of League One at the time, I still think we fielded a good enough side. We should have been beating that Wimbledon team, but we didn't.
They outplayed us, they outdid us, they outran us, they outworked us. That was one of the most disappointing and frustrating matches I've seen. You
know, it's going to be difficult to watch Watford in the FA Cup final and not think that could have been us.
We've struggled against other teams who have sat deep against us and opposition we feel like we should be stepping to. But Wimbledon is a whole nother level of team we should be beating.
You know, if you look at the way the draw then worked out, we then had Millwall, then we had, I think it was Brighton, etc. So you could argue we would have got to the semi-final. We would have come up against Manchester City in the semi-final, but we would have got to the semi-final of the FA Cup.
Cups are brilliant because teams can overturn the big boys. You can get those shock results.
That's a huge, huge disappointment. It's my main priority every season, to see us do well in the Cups. We didn't. You know, I don't mind going out in the Cup, we go out to a better team, or we play well one day and we just lose. Fair enough. But against Wimbledon,
completely deserved on their part and fair play, because they 100% deserve to go through. But that's the frustrating thing. It wasn't even like we were screwed out of it. We just weren't good enough.
It's just got to be the fact that we couldn't really show any consistency, and we couldn't beat the teams that we should be beating. If you look at the final league table and where we ended up, the points tally that we ended up accumulating, it could have been so much better. We got a lot of points, remember, against the big 6 this season, and we've dropped a lot of points against teams around us and teams below us. I mean, Brighton, for instance, 6 points dropped against Wolves. You add those points together and look where we'd be in the table. We'd be in a very strong position, and We've got to start beating these teams that we really should be beating. It's all very well beating the teams towards the top of the league, and it's great to do so, but come on, clear up and beat the teams around us, beat the teams below us. We'll be in a very healthy position.
I think there are a few things actually for disappointment of the season. I think firstly, obviously missing out on European football was a massive thing for us. I think we all had our sights set on 7th place when Pellegrini took over, and obviously, unfortunately, probably down to, mistakes made by officials, we didn't actually get to that place at the end of the season. If we hadn't have had the disruption that Arnautovic caused in January, I think maybe a squad that we saw that was so together up to Christmas in the running with all those back-to-back wins could have potentially pushed on, and we might have seen a better team and a team that could qualify and could push for those European places. Probably the other thing that probably didn't help us at that time was the fact that there's a lot of injuries in and around the club. The likes of Yarmolenko with his Achilles, Jack Wilshere, Manuel Lanzini. Some of these injuries you couldn't plan for, and I think obviously ultimately disrupted having Manuel Pellegrini knowing his full starting 11. You often saw each week that we did often change our size quite a bit if something wasn't right, and I think we all collectively as a fan base said that Manuel never really knew his starting 11, coupled with the lack of European football next season, all played a part in culminating sort of our disappointment moments of the season.
Disappointment of the season's got to be Jack Wilshere. I was expecting big things from Jack. I know people will think it was obvious that he was going to get injured, but I think he's a world-class player on his day, and I was disappointed that he didn't get the season, didn't get to see him perform to his best ability in a West Ham shirt. Fingers crossed next season.
My favourite moment of the season was the new claret carpet at the London Stadium. No, I'm just joking, but no, my favourite moment of the season definitely had to be the 1-0 win away at Spurs.
First team to score in their new ground, first team to beat them in their new ground.
Oh, they were so pleased with themselves in their new stadium, cockerel on a ball on top, cheese rooms, fancy turnstiles, swiping machines, bottles of glasses that fill up from the bottom. It didn't matter.
I thought to a man we played absolutely amazingly on that day.
Absolutely buzzing. Mikel Antonio, great goal.
We don't ask for much really as West Ham fans, but I think to have that one over on probably one of your biggest London rivals.
I was just buzzing after that. I just love beating them. I can't stand them. I'm sure a lot of you are the same.
West Ham went to New White Hart Lane or whatever it's called and smacked their bums.
The first team to beat Arsenal at the Emirates and the last team to beat them at Highbury. So to be able to have that one over on Spurs is, like I said, something that you will never be able to take away from us.
My favourite moment this year was us beating a North London team 1-0. That's right, Arsenal. Not quite the one everyone else would have go for, I admit, but I remember being at that game and feeling just how much we deserved it. In the polar opposite to how with Wimbledon, they outplayed us, they outran us, they out everything to us. We did that to Arsenal. We turned up that day. Nasri was pulling off nice little deft 1-2 touches in and around the box. Declan Rice got his first ever senior goal for the club. There was so much to love about that performance that day. Coming off the back of the amazing December we had to flex on Arsenal. That's what we did. We flexed on them that day. We properly deserved it.
It's got to be Declan Rice's first goal for West Ham. I was actually a bit worried. It's a bit strange, but I was a bit worried that I would miss it. Because, I only attend, let's just say half the home games a season, depending when they are in terms of TVs and stuff. And I don't do away games really, I've only done one or two. So that leaves me with a quarter of the games. I go to just over a quarter of the games a season. So the chances of seeing Declan Rice's first goal for West Ham was probably slim. And when he scored against Arsenal, everybody cheered for the goal. When people saw it was Declan Rice, they cheered again. And when the replay went up, because it was Declan Rice, there was another cheer. So Declan Rice's goal got 3 cheers, and it was just a really sort of proud moment as a West Ham fan to see him get his first goal for West Ham. And yeah, I'm pleased to be there actually. It's one of those things you'll always remember, isn't it?
Rating out of 10 for the season? 6.5. Nothing special, nothing terrible. I guess halfway would be 5, but 5 sounds harsh. 6.5 out of 10 for this season. Could and should and must do better.
I'll give it a 7. Tempted to give it an 8, but at the same time, it's the Cups. You automatically lose at least 1 point for the disappointment of the Cups, and there's a League Cup and an FA Cup, so that's -2, down to 8. And I think there's been a few times where the football's been slow. The Arnautovic thing was handled wrongly by the club in general, if you like. This is rating for West Ham's season, not for Pellegrini. I'm not blaming Pellegrini for it. But it's a 7 out of 10 for me, which I think is good. It's acceptable. I'm happy, Hammer, and I'm looking forward to next season.
7 out of 10 for me. I'm happy with the league performance. There's been some matches where I've been frustrated at the outcome. I've been frustrated about our performance, our inability to break other teams down. However, finishing top half of the table with the huge squad overhaul we had at the beginning of the season, all of these new players bringing in a better style of football, I'm happy and confident going into next year that we'll be even better and be able to improve on our results and our performances.
I would rate the season out of 10 probably a 7. We made an amazing start last summer, having Huselos put in and making some of the transfers, breaking the transfer record twice, signing some unbelievable players that possibly when the window always starts, we always think it's nice to be linked with them, but we never actually follow through and actually sign these players. However, the season obviously didn't start the way that we wanted, and we thought, oh, same old, here we go again. It picked up into Christmas, but not so much, little down patches throughout the season. Probably one of our worst performances of the season was going away to in the FA Cup and losing in the manner that we did. I think it's not obviously the strongest of FA Cup fixtures that have been this season. Obviously, Watford making it to the final and Brighton and Wolves into the semi-final. It would have been nice to sort of emulate what those guys had done and set up potentially another sort of semi-final or final FA Cup, because I think at the end of the day, that's what the fans are screaming out for. We missed out on European football, was obviously one of our other targets before the season starts, but I think to be able to bring through certain players like Declan Rice, Grady Diangana and others made up for what was otherwise a disappointing end to the season with, you know, all the expectations we had before the start of the season. But I think for me, maybe around a 7 or 7.5 would be a fair rating for Pellegrini's first season in charge.
I'm going to give it a 7. Nothing spectacular. Certainly between 8th and 10th you'd have expected at the start of the season. That's been delivered upon. I've explained some of the reasons why it's been good, some of the disappointments previously, but overall fairly average season. But I do think the building blocks are there in place for us to improve and show progression again next season. That's what I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we'll push on and do even better.
And there you have it. That's the thoughts of the boys on their hammer of the year, their signing of the season, their favourite moment, disappointment of the season, the Pellegrini verdict, and their rating out of 10. We also want to know your thoughts on this season as well. In the pinned comments below, you'll see the 6 questions as a template. Just copy and paste and give your answers to all 6. We'll be keeping an eye on what you've put. Make sure you check out the Hammerette time version, which is on your screen right now, where Chelsea and Laura give their answers to the same questions. And also drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new around here, and we'll see you very, very soon.